Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go this great comeback story I sent from a subscriber. As from a guy, I believe he's in his early 30s now, and he shares his story how back a decade ago in his 20s, he was openly admitting that he was a loser. He really had nothing going on for his life, wasn't striving for anything, was having just these dead-end jobs, not paying much. His credit was terrible. He ruined his credit. He had credit card debt. Cars are being repoed. I mean, all these things. And one day he decided no more. He's going to make a change. And slowly but surely, because there was, it was a two-step forward, one-step back process, he really got things together. And also, he was smart enough to seek help to help him from his father and his girlfriend at the time, who's now his wife, who's one of the good ones. He really was able to do that. And I might add, lose a bunch of weight, get in shape. And so he's sharing this, and I'm sharing this to show you guys out there that maybe feel like you're stuck in life, that you can't improve things. You can make a change, but you gotta really want it and be willing to take action every day in some capacity to get yourself where you want to be. As well as ask help for people, not be ashamed to ask help from those that want to help you, because we can't, nobody has ever had great success on getting some help someplace in some capacity. And there's no shame in asking for it. So as you can see, this is a longer story, but I thought it was worth doing today, particularly as we have a couple of weeks left in the year, because a lot of people choose the new year, like a New Year's resolution, to jumpstart a change. So for any of you watching this that want to make a change, listen to this guy's story. There's some parts that drag out, but the point is you're going to see how he does it. And I might add, it goes from a guy with nothing to owning his own house and finding a way to save money for the down payment and all. It's pretty good. So it starts off, it says, "Hi SSM. First of all, thank you for all the videos you've done these last few years. I've been a listener since 2021. Brother, thank you for your support. Coming up on 5 years on YouTube in February. This is not the normal type of story that you usually do. This is a story of how, even in this shitty economy, I've been successful and everyone else can be too. It includes a pretty long-winded bit of background to show how much of a loser I was just a few years ago. Hopefully it's not too long and you can get through it. It's a longer story, bro, but your story is worth being told. Guys need to hear this. A bit of a background about myself. I grew up middle class. I had both my parents and they did not divorce, surprisingly. My dad is a man who seems to know nearly everything useful in life, knowing how to fix anything you can think of other than small electronics. Your dad sounds like my godfather, may he rest in peace. My godfather, my mother's brother, could fix anything. This dude had more tools than Home Depot. It was awesome. Since I was young, he always included me in helping him fixing the house, fixing the vehicles, building the sheds, fixing some appliances in the house. My mom also taught me a lot about how to keep the inside of the house running as well. I learned how to properly clean and some also cooking from her. They both taught me many other lessons, but if I listened, we would all be here for hours. Well, good for your parents for teaching you some practical things you need to learn for as an adult. So many young people don't have that nowadays. This does not mean we all got along well in my teens and early 20s. I had issues with both my parents during that time, to the point of not talking to either of them much for a few years. Smack! Well, you're an asshole for doing that. There was a mix of me needing to grow up and lesser so them needing to realize they no longer have any control over me. Thankfully today, I get along extremely well with both my mom and my dad. Well, that's good. You grew up. My dad and I fish, mountain bike, and hike often together. We also do cash side work together too as general handymen. I could go on, but this isn't the main reason for me writing in. But I will say, one thing I think people can learn is that it took me too long to learn is to forgive your parents for not having the patience when you were younger, especially your father, and know that in most cases he's trying to teach you a lesson he had to learn the hard way about life. A lot of times when parents are tough on the kids when they're kids think their parents are mean. But a lot of times the parents are trying to help them. Now, don't get me wrong, there are parents that are just assholes in general, and are assholes to be mean. So there's a distinction. But my dad was very tough on me, and there were times when I was a kid growing up, I thought my dad was an asshole. May he rest in peace. Sorry, Dad, but my dad's looking down. It's like, what the fuck, son? No. There were times when I didn't know any better as a kid, as a teenager, but he was trying to help me. And once I grew up, he and I were best friends until he passed away in 2019. My dad was the old school generation, and I got the old school upbringing. And not to mention old school ass whooping when I was a kid when I got out of line. I spent my 20s doing nothing useful and smoking a lot of pot. I didn't save a penny. Smack, dumbass. I didn't invest at all, not into myself nor into the economy. I've been working since I was 13 years old when I started stacking hay in the summer times for the local farm. I've had many jobs since and until recently did nothing useful with how much I worked. I spent all my money on mostly useless crap and food. I made stupid choices, went into debt, let things go in collections. Basically, I screwed up a lot in my 20s. Guys, don't waste the potential of your 20s like I did. Bro, I respect you so much for coming clean and admitting that you fucked things up. A lot of people don't want to admit they fucked up and therefore they can't fix the problem. You know, you got to admit you have a problem before you can embark on the journey to fix yourself. Life changed for me in 2020. I started dating my now wife in April 2020. I had no job for about a month when we started dating and no money. I got a low-paying work from a home call center job right after we started dating. Until the 2020 free government money, I made one of the best choices of my life. I bought a nice entry-level mountain bike with that $1,200 the government gave us. You got $1,200 that the taxpayers gave you to get your mountain bike. But if that mountain bike was leading you to your journey of self-improvement, making the world a better place, fine. I rode every single day I could, and at this point in my life, my health changed. Before I started riding, I was heading towards 210 pounds at 5'10", in horrible shape, but NMTB completely changed that. It was brutal at first since my cardio was getting out of breath, going up the stairs, but every day I got better and looked forward to the improvement. My wife, who's a girlfriend at the time, also saw massive improvements in me. With this change, I was able to not be dying in bed after 5 minutes of fun. Around this time, I was still smoking way too much pot and got my wife into it occasionally. Dude, I don't smoke pot or do any drugs. I got no problem if somebody does every once in a while, but all the time, first the money you're spending. Second of all sorts of other issues, as you're going to see in this story. It's not worth it. I know I'm going to get some people are going to give me shit about that, but that's just my opinion. A few months after starting to work for my home call center, I was out of work again due to my own choices. I hate the job as Intuit TurboTax is an evil company that will try to screw over its customers every single chance it gets, and I just couldn't take working for them anymore. It was a stupid move, but I did quit before finding another job. Smack! No matter how much you hate your job, guys, make sure you have something lined up before you quit your job. It's common sense. But you obviously didn't have a whole lot of responsibilities back then, so, you didn't care. During this time, I was renting a room for one of my best friends, and the rent was very reasonable, so I took most of the money I had left and paid 2 months of rent ahead to secure myself for a bit. I went to my one friend that had been working for the local porta pot company for the last 7 years, and he got me a job pumping shitters. Sounds like a shit job, dude. It paid better than my previous job, but was well under what it should have been. At this time, I didn't have a car as my previous one got repoed due to my shit choices of not keeping a consistent job. I rode my bike a few miles every day to work or picked up a ride from my roommates when their work schedule and their job lined up with mine. This job was shit. The only nice thing about it was you were working by yourself all day. Yeah, it was a shit job because you were pumping those things of shit. I eventually got sick of riding to work and relying on my roommates and my now wife for rides everywhere. Plus, it was getting colder and riding in winter was brutal. I asked my wife to help me get, I guess she was your girlfriend then, but she's your wife now. I asked her to get me a car from the local pay here at the time, and I learned that she had saved a pretty decent amount of money since she had kept a job for over 6 years and lived a pretty simple life. We only been dating 6 months at this point, and she had already seen me quit my job without one ready to go. She said yes, and she would help me. I already had a car picked out, a 2004 Honda CR-V with 160,000 miles manual transmission. The asking price was only slightly above typical, and for a buy here, pay here, it was reasonable, plus I had no rust at all, which in Northeast PA is extremely rare. Northeast Pennsylvania, huh? Dude, you must not be too far from where my family's from. She paid the entire $1,500 down payment. I had the car in my name and the contract with the buy here, there, pay there in my name. We did write up a contract of paying her back $1,500 when we got home. Well, dude, if she was giving you this money after 6 months of you being involved, and you were, let's be honest, a loser back then, you were on your way to improving things, but you had ways to go. That says a lot about her, you know? And they said that she is good with money. That's really good. You hold on to those types. About 1 month later, I got fired from the shitter pumping job as I refused to clean out by hand a potty that scumbags had been using as a dumpster. Pizza boxes, giant bags of Taco Bell, and all sorts of other trash have been stuffed in this porta pot, filling the toilet part of the brim with trash, piss, and shit. This time I wasn't an idiot. I already had a job lined up at the local Amazon warehouse and was planning to quit next week when I started the Amazon job. Okay, you're improving now. You already had a job lined up. I'll skip closer to the end of the Amazon job. By the time I ended up quitting the Amazon job, I had paid back my wife for the loan helping me get the car. I also saved about $3,000, but not to have savings, but to buy a better mountain bike, which I did. Well, good. You're improving, you know, slowly but surely. Now you're saving money. By this point, the MTB, my cardio, was amazing, and my weight was around 195 pounds since I ate like shit. Well, you dropped 15 pounds, so you're making progress. I quit Amazon. I just walked out without saying a word one day as I was sick of working for such a company that underpays and requires you to work for them for a year and a half before you get your first raise, and that raise was not even $1. I didn't have a job lined up, but I did have a plan to get a job quickly. Smack! Okay, that's why I said 2 steps forward, 1 step back in this story. You should have a job lined up. But don't worry, guys. I know it's a long story, guys, but you got to see where a guy comes from to get where he is, where he's in a good place. And it isn't just going straight up. It's, you know, it's kind of like up and down, 2 step forward, 1 step back. Now that I have a vehicle, I applied to the local Domino's for a delivery driver job and called them every day until I was hired. In less than 2 weeks, I was driving for Domino's. Domino's was my first job at 16 making pizzas. I loved it. The hourly was less than Amazon, but with the tips, even after gas, it was more money. The main issue with this job was that everyone there was a pothead, and it made it so I ended up smoking away even more of my money. Smack! That's my point about the pot, guys. And you are who you spend your time with. All the other coworkers are smoking pot, and you're going to be like that. I was high almost all the time. I was spending at minimum a quarter of my money on weed. It's not as if I wasn't paying my bills or anything like that. I just wasn't progressing anywhere in life thanks to these choices. Hey, at least you're admitting that it was your screw up. Takes a lot of screwing up, guys, for people to learn. So one night while delivering, I was driving down a road, and at this last second, I noticed what happened to be a road sign that had been hit and left in the middle of the road. Think sign facing down on the road, but the pole was bent up about 1 foot. I swerved to avoid it, but it was too late and I hit it. I popped my tire, so I had to change my old-ass spare tire on the side of the road at night. Then once I was driving again, it was clear something was wrong with the same front passenger side as it was making noises that I could barely hear over my now torn off catalytic converter. Oh boy, that's a costly repair. I took it to the dealership that my friend works at to see how much it would be to fix everything. With parts and labor, it was going to be $2,000. And this, gentlemen, is why you have an emergency fund. My friend even asked one of the mechanics what they would charge to do the work at their garage at home, and it was still $1,500 as the parts that needed were not cheap. Yeah, catalytic converter, man. I talked to my wife about the options, as she would have to cover this for me, and I didn't have enough money to cover for it. One of the other options I came up with was to get a newer used car, as my payment was pretty high on the CRV since I was from a buy here, pay there situation. I had called the buy here, pay here place and asked if they would take back the car with the damages and just called even. At this point, they had already made more than what they needed, so they took it back without issue. My wife paid the $1,200 down on the 2017 Honda Accord, and the monthly payment was slightly less than what the CRV was. Okay, got a better deal. Not long after this, the people my friend was renting the house from decided to sell. It was a month-to-month agreement for all of us, and we decided to get the fuck out since they decided they were going to sell. No point in paying someone else's mortgage when they are essentially screwing you over by selling. I had a choice between moving back with my parents or paying them rent or moving into my wife's house that is overcrowded, falling apart, and as her brother and sister that I do not get along with due to how they treat her. I chose at the age of 30 years old to move back in with my parents. I'm assuming by now you're getting along with your parents. Fast forward a bit, I had a conversation with my younger brother when we were on our way back to the 4-day MTB trip. On the ride home, he asked me to send him a part of the trip as he fronted the trip. I was pretty sure I told him I would have to pay him over a few weeks because we went on the trip, but I guess that wasn't clear. He gave me a lecture about how what I'm doing with not having any money saved and not planning for the future wasn't fair to my wife, and this really isn't the type of life I want to live. That moment was a turning point for me. Well, that's good, man, that your brother said that to you. You need to hear it. A lot of people would say, F you, brother, but I'm glad you listened. And he cared about you enough to tell you that. Fast forward a few months later until January 16th, 2022. I made a choice that may have been the biggest change in my life ever. I quit smoking weed cold turkey and vowed to never touch it again. Good for you, bro. You're going to save a fortune in the weed, amongst many other things. I quit for 2 reasons at the time. One was I need to stop spending so much money on it, and the other was I realized it was holding me back from getting where I want to be. The thing I didn't realize at the time was that it was majorly affecting my outlook and attitude on life. It made me okay with being bored and complacent. It was also holding me back from getting better paying work. On top of quitting smoking, I also started working out 4 days a week and eating much less junk food. Yeah, people get the munchies when they smoke pot. Good, man. 2 months later of not smoking and still eating good and working out regularly, I was a lot stronger and down to 185 for the first time since high school. Wonderful. See, guys, this is a two-step forward, 1 step back journey for this guy, but now we're looking at more steps up to improvement. One thing that did not improve much was my money situation. I was spending a lot less since I wasn't smoking away, but I just wasn't making enough to improve my situation. That's why I decided that I had to get a better paying job, no matter how much the job sucked. Welcome to real life, my man. Pizza delivery was easy and even fun sometimes, but the money is just not there. I sat down with my dad and told him I needed to make more money, and that it was time I started doing right by my family, aka myself and my wife/girlfriend at the time. As what I now make is unreasonable to think I'd be able to properly provide. I asked him to help me get my foot in the door at a contractor he thought was the best one out of all the ones he knew, and he knew a lot of them in the area living in his entire life here. So he put in the word and I applied. I got the job as a paving crew member. Let me tell you about paving crew work. It is by far the worst work I've ever done in my life. Yeah, man, it's fucking hot. You have the brutal heat of the sun on you all time of the day as you're working on a road or parking lot. Then you have an even worse heat hitting you from below the 250 to 300 degree asphalt. Also the heat hitting you from the paver machine since you need to work right next to it most of the time. Guys, never look down on people that do that type of shit for a living because it's hard fucking work. Okay? I think everybody in their lives should work at a restaurant for a few months to see what people deal with in restaurants. And I think every guy out there should spend at least a summer doing hot, back-breaking work out in the sun, physical labor, to really appreciate and respect that. And a lot of people do that for a living. And so you understand and have a respect for those that do that, you know? And if you realize that you don't want to do that, it'll motivate you to, study harder in school or focus on that trade that you're not doing that, But look, the world needs all sorts of guys doing all sorts of jobs. So I'm glad you did this and it taught you something. But you had to make more money to help provide. He says, anyway, with the job, you stink like BO and diesel fuel all the time. You're constantly throwing around heavy shovels full of asphalt. This company is one of the better ones, according to my dad, and they still suck, as 2 weeks into me being on the paving crew, I was demoted because they said I didn't have what it took to be on the paving crew. They said that because unlike all the effed up people who have been on the crew for years, I had to take some time in the day to eat some food, drink some water, and take a piss more than once a day. They demoted me to the dirt crew, which meant that I was the shovel, rake, and grade shooting, and whatever else guy for someone else operating as an excavator. It was the best demotion that ever happened to me. It was still extremely hard work out in the sun all the time, and I hated every single day of it, but it was making me better than paving. I hated this job, but I woke up every day and dragged myself to work as I wanted the money and a better life for me and my now wife. Well, yeah, you had to do what you had to do. That's called being a fucking man. And if you had kids to pay for, you bet your ass you're getting up and doing a job you hate to take care of people. Again, that's being a fucking man. I was making well over double what I made when delivering pizzas, even on my best weeks. There you go. Thankfully, towards the end of 2022, I was contacted by the previous job I had that I ruined by a failed drug test to come work for there again. I jumped on that opportunity, and I'm still at that job today. It pays even better than the dirt crew job, and the work is much less intense. The benefits are amazing: 401k matching, fully paid for health, dental, and vision, yearly bonuses and raises. That's awesome, man. You paid your dues. Look, the benefits of getting off the pot. Better job, better pay, your health's better, you're saving more money that you used to spend on the weed. Fit, all that stuff. That's wonderful. Takes a lot to make a change like that, dude. So, okay, he's got a better job now, he's making more money. Now we're getting on to other things to improve his life upon. We're not done yet. Fast forward again to February 2023, I decided that my wife and I need to make some big changes if we were ever going to get our own home together. This is the part where I wrote this to you, SSM, to show you that simple changes like these make the major difference between those who say it's impossible or near impossible to own a home now in this shit economy and those who bought their first home recently. The first thing we changed was moving on all our credit card debt to a 0% interest for 12-month card and getting it paid off. Yes, get rid of the fucking credit card debt, guys. That will eat you alive. Guys, only spend what you can pay off every month. Because if that balance carries forward, you're paying these astronomical interest rates on the card. And I get if an emergency situation happens and you got to do it. There's emergencies that happen, but ideally you have an emergency fund so you don't have to put on the freaking American Express card and pay a shitload of fucking money in interest. And I might add, you get your credit cards paid off or pay them every month on time. That'll improve your credit score, which can help you when you need to get a mortgage, things like that. I also need to bring up my credit score, which was 550 at the time. Whoa, that's low. We need to stop going out and wasting money on stuff like fast food, restaurants, Pokemon, MTG cards, and other stuff we don't need. I had her cut out Dunkin' and Starbucks completely and had her pack a lunch every day. Cutting out the coffee trips alone saved us over $120 a month, and that's just her, as I don't drink coffee. That's awesome, bro. See, those guys, they're making sacrifices. Short-term sacrifices for long-term gain. A lot of people, buying a house ain't easy for a lot of people. Getting that down payment, and not to mention an environment right now where interest rates are higher and all that. But a lot of people that complain they can't get a house, also the ones that piss away their money and a lot of bullshit. The little things add up. So you start looking at your life and cutting back on all those areas for just a time being so you can save up for a down payment and all that stuff and the closing costs and all that. Okay, once you do that for a while, then you can then have the down payment. If you set a plan, you can make it work. And that's what this guy's done. But a lot of people are unwilling to make sacrifices and want to bitch about it, So by this time, our money had already been in a shared account since we had so many intertwined bills, and she proved to me that putting our money together wasn't a bad idea. Smack! Never put all your money in one account. I don't care how cool your wife is. You can put some money to account to pay for the mutual bills, but you can save in your account, she can save in hers. Anyhow, she multiple times put her money on the line when I showed she probably shouldn't have. The two cars, even though I moved from job to job all the time, and smoked away a lot of our money. I know still smack, and I do agree with you that in almost all situations, you should not combine money like this. So thanks to the combination and her handling the bills, we were able to save a pretty good amount of money. Congratulations, brother. You made sacrifices, you were smart, you had a plan, and now you got money set aside for a down payment. Now you can get things rolling to get your house. Good. Over time, I paid off all my collections except for my repoed car. My credit got up to 620. Not great, but massively better than it was. Hey, 550 to 620, that's a big improvement. And over time, you're going to then get to 700, then 750, then 800. It'll happen if you're smart. Around late July 2023, we decided it's time to see what we can get for a pre-approval for a home loan. July 2023, I was doing my pre-approval thing in June of 2023. It's like it was yesterday. First, I tried by myself to see what I could get, and after paying off the first last collection, that I wasn't aware I was approved for $200,000, which is enough to get a very small house on a very little land in this area. If you're in Northeast Pennsylvania, out in the country, yeah, I can see that. I decided to add my wife to see what we could get combined. She has excellent credit, but makes about half what I do, and already has a small mortgage since her parents died a few years ago, and her and her one sister took over what was left of the house. With her on there, we got $250,000 and a better rate. Okay, so you're going to be looking for a fixer-upper. Out in the country, probably away from anything that like a town or anything very attractive, but it's your starter home. And since you have these skills that your mom and dad taught you about fixing shit and renovations, this will help you getting a fixer-upper. Now, you didn't mention the down payment or closing costs or money and emergency fund for renovations and shit, but I'm assuming you had enough for all that. So this opened up our options for about 10 houses that kind of all sucked to a lot of houses. Some that sucked and some that were a steal, like the one we got. Once we got the pre-approval, we got our agent, who was a huge help to us the buying experience. A good realtor is key. I was fortunate because I had a friend recommend a gal down here who they were friends with, a friend of a friend, and she was awesome. She was a big help to me. We're still friends. We got our 6 houses lined up for viewing in one day. 3 ended up canceling. One of the houses was a small 900 square foot, very unique house on 1.3 acres of a wooded, beautiful land. But thanks to bringing my dad along, we found that the box frame of the house was completely rotted, and the owner covered it with their crap from foam and plastic waterproofing. A lot of people do that in their crawl spaces today. He says, guys, be warned. If someone does this to a crawl space, it's a bad sign. I'm not saying it's always going to be frame rot, but it's likely to be bad. As soon as we found out that, we moved on to the second house, which was added to the list that day, before, as it had just came onto the market, one day before we added to the list. I know this is long, guys, but this is a good story if you like comeback stories. This house was the newest by far, being built in 1991. The biggest and best location. It needs some work, but nothing major. The appliances were old and it needed good cleaning, but after my dad inspected it, it was clear this house was in excellent shape and only needed work that we could do ourselves. We were pretty much set in this house, but we decided to see the final one just in case. It was really good. The third house was not, but it was ancient, small, and the exact same price as the second house. So we talked to our agent and told him to put an offer of $245,000 for the second house, which was listed at $250,000. They came back 2 days later and did not accept the offer. We then offered $250,000 with 3% seller assistance, and they took the offer. Well, there you go. Congratulations. After doing the long paperwork and waiting the actual inspection stuff, we eventually closed on the house in November 21st, 2023. And we were moved in 3 days later after a lot of hardcore cleaning. Congratulations, brother. You did it. You and your wife did it. You should feel so good about yourself and your comeback and being disciplined. Goes to show you guys can be done. He said we then lived happily ever after and everything was super smooth. Just kidding. Yeah, there is no way. Fucking alarm. You guys know there's no way I can get through a video without sirens or alarms or some damn thing. Anyway, yeah, happily ever after. Yeah, right. You move into the house, this is where your emergency fund comes in. Something's going to go wrong. You're going to have to fix or renovate or replace. 3 days into the moving in, the dishwasher broke and the oven barely worked. The washer and dryer, the same with the washer and dryer. Off to Lowe's we went to get new appliances. We didn't want to use our new lower savings, so we put them on credit, but with 2 years at 0% interest, and we'll have it paid off the interest-free period. Dude, I had to replace the washer and dryer after less than a year, but the inspector knew that, and I knew that going into it. I also had to update the sprinkler system at the house I bought. And in Florida, 6 months of the year it doesn't rain, so you need a sprinkler system. I had to do the pool filter that had to be upgraded, as well as other things. The garage rails that had to be changed because the former owner's wife crashed into it and it was a little dented. So yeah, I had a bunch of renovations I had to do too. It is what it is. And I got projects in mind for the house of redoing a closet upstairs, redoing a bathroom, but that's not necessary. It's down the road. This is why you have an emergency fund. Then the shower started to leak. Thankfully, it was just that the idiots before us didn't put Teflon tape on the part that comes out of the wall. Then during a heavy rain, our finished basement got water in it, and we discovered the downspouts of the gutters were not hooked up right, and pretty much just put the water right on the house. We cleared out the water and ran blower fans for a week to make sure everything dried up. I properly routed the gutters away from the house, and that solved the problem. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, welcome to the joy of homeownership. But in the long term, it pays off. This is where your dad and your mom teaching you shit helps out. Now, my wife and I are married, and we have been homeowners for over a year in this supposedly impossible economy. Don't get me wrong, this economy is garbage, but it's not the main factor keeping young people from being able to own a home. Our home is a little over 2,000 square feet on a 0.63 acre wooded land in a small community that has a small fishing lake and a hiking trail around it. Dude, that sounds awesome. I'm not special. I do not make a lot of money. I work 50 to 60 hours a week. Combined, we make about 90 grand a year, which to a lot of people they consider poor. You can do it. You can own a home. You just need to make the right choices to do so. This is the advice I have for anyone wanting to buy a home but thinking they cannot do it. He says, number one, first of all, be realistic. It's unlikely you can afford a house right near downtown or close to the city for your first home. Look into getting something further away from those prime locations. Exactly. It's a starter home. It's your first home. Be realistic with the size and how new of a home you can afford. The newer the house, the more expensive. The bigger, the more expensive. And the more recently renovated, the more expensive. Recently renovated is a bad thing in my mind, as it means you're paying for what somebody else chose to do, not what you wanted to do, and it also is commonly used to cover up cheap or inadequate repairs if done right before selling. One repair you want done recently to an older house is a new roof. 15 to 20 years is a roof's lifespan. You can negotiate a better price or a new roof as part of the purchase agreement when buying. Yes, a roof is a big deal. The house I bought, they had the roof. I bought this house my house now in 2023. The roof had been redone in 2019. So it was only 4 years old. So I got many years on that. So it was a good deal. If it had been old, I would have negotiated a better price, knowing I'd have to redo the whole fucking roof. And in Florida, they're expensive because most of the houses down here have tiled roofs. He says, stop going out to eat. It's a waste of money. If you have a goal of owning a home, look into how much money you spend a month on it. Yeah, learn to cook, guys. You'll save a ton of money. Most likely you'll be surprised that you're spending $400+ a month just on that. Stop paying high interest on credit cards. If you have a balance, look into getting a card that has 0% interest period on a balance transfers. Even with a score of 620, you can actually get them. Stop paying money for entertainment. Do free shit like hikes or free public events, or start a hobby that has a small investment that will keep you entertained for as long while you made your investment into it. He says, I recommend fishing or getting a small gym, blah, blah, blah. Cut back on junk foods and work out even if it's just body weight or yoga at home. This will keep you focused and cut back on food costs. If you don't already have good credit, start working on it. 2 easy ways to build credit fast is to get a card and only use it for gas and food and pay it off every single month completely. I completely agree, guys. Just get that card, buy a small shit, and make sure you pay it off on time. If you have someone with good credit in your life willing to add you to a credit card that they use, that is in good standing. As an authorized user, this can help a lot and fast. You don't even need to have a card they send, shred it, and you'll see the results. Cancel all your subscriptions if you can. If you need to keep one for entertainment, remember this will be your first house, not necessarily your last or best. You can always get this house now, improve it, and then rent or sell it for a profit. Finally, you choose your pay. If your job is not paying you enough, either negotiate more money or get a better paying job. No one is forcing you to stay. I'm sure a lot more advice others in SSM can give about this subject, but this is what I did and the advice I can think of. Thanks again, SSM, for what you do in the community, and remember that you can do it. Your personal choices matter a lot more than the country being run badly. I was a loser just a few years ago and in the worst economy, and I did it. You can too. The end. Brother, great story. I'm really proud of you. A lot of guys won't admit they're fucking up or say they're losers, but we all have that, well, most of us will have that moment where we hit rock bottom or realize it's time to make a change, and you did that. And what's realistic about your story, it wasn't just a straight up improvement. You had setbacks, you had roadblocks, you had things that happened, but you kept on pushing forward. And now you're in a good place. So good job for you and your wife. Keep living as you are. Your advice for turning shit around is very good, very spot on. And I wish you all the best. And I hope you and your wife have a good marriage. She sounds like a darn good one. And down the road, maybe you might eventually sell the house after you renovate it and get something that you might like for different reasons. Who knows? Or you can be perfectly content in this house for a long time, because you guys got it together and you put your heart and soul into it. Who knows? If it's enough for you, then fine. No need to move up to something bigger and have a bigger expense every month. So good job, man. And maybe in time, if you are looking to do something else, you can get a better paying job if that's what you want. But your comeback is phenomenal. So guys, if you're watching this now and you've watched the whole thing and you're in a place you don't want to be and you want something better in your life, you have to make the choice to go for it. And when you do, seek out help from people that have knowledge, are willing to help you. And cut the crap out of your life, bad people out of your life, bad habits and stuff like that, and you'll be amazed what can happen. But with a can-do attitude, not giving up. And yes, you can get a house nowadays if you have an income. You can turn around your credit. You can find ways to save. You do have to make sacrifices. You're not going to get anywhere in life, guys, without making some sacrifices at some point. The problem is most people aren't willing to do that. We have a very instant gratification society, and they just can't get past their need for instant gratification. If you make sacrifices for a little while in those things, you'll be amazed at the long-term benefits. So, great story. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And guys, you got a good story to share, definitely email me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.